So naturally, we spend a lot of time talking about the pieces Alabama is going to have to replace, but today we need to talk about a piece they bring back, a piece that's sure to have a big season, both in terms of personal production and in terms of impact to the team, because this is an individual that actually gives them the most production in terms of returning receiving yards on the entire roster. And of course, we're talking about tight end Cameron Latu and why he could be an instrumental piece for the offense this year. Before we jump into all of this, y'all know the drill. I need to hear from you. Hop down to the comments, Y for yes, N for no. Do you believe that Cameron Latu is in store for a big year? And then let me know what you're thinking. If you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, hit that bell notification as I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. And if you enjoyed this content, like and comment down below as those interactions are massive. But having said all that, let's jump right into this. And this is something I've been thinking about for quite some time as we look at what the Crimson Tide have to replace in terms of Jamison Williams, Slade Bolden, John Mechie. We then come to the realization that Cameron Latu gives the Crimson Tide the most in terms of returning production in the receiving department on the entire roster. And one of the good news about that is that this is an individual that plays a position that you can absolutely take advantage of mismatches. Cameron Latu had a really solid year last year. 26 receptions, 410 yards, and 15.8 average yards per reception. That all right there culminates in a really positive season, and one of the things I think sets itself up to be quite interesting is the existing relationship between Cameron Latu and Bryce Young. Because as Bryce Young is going to have to get acclimated with some new pieces that Alabama was able to acquire out the transfer portal, pieces that should be really exciting, nonetheless, he has to get acclimated to them. He does not have to get acclimated to Cameron Latu. That's a relationship they can hit the ground running now. And that is something that's incredibly positive, especially with all of the new around Bryce Young. The offensive line is going to continue to be worked on, but if we look at the running back room, Alabama was dominated by one running back last year and not by choice. Injuries really hit that room uniquely hard. And because of that, Brian Robinson Jr. carried the load, an individual who's no longer on the roster. Now, Alabama got Jahmyr Gibbs, who's as talented as any running back in the nation, and I think is about to be an incredibly fun piece to watch. But nonetheless, that's still a new piece. Jace McClellan, very talented back. And don't get me wrong, as high as I am on Jace McClellan, and let's be honest, when he was healthy last season, he just shows you he's a back that cannot be ignored. He's going to be someone to keep an eye on. Cameron Latu being there for the entirety of the year and then being used the way he was is something that's going to be a major benefit to the Crimson Tide this year because Alabama's a little bit thin in the tight end department. Jaleel Billingsley and Cameron Latu were two individuals that many of the Crimson Tide fan base were very excited to see last year. And though Cameron Latu gave us a year that many of us were only hoping for, Jaleel Billingsley didn't match that production. But now that he is with the Texas Longhorns, the need for there to be production in that tight end room only increases, especially when you look that Cameron Latu is by far and about carrying the room in terms of production. Robbie Oates had one reception for 8 yards last year. And look, I love the tight ends Alabama has coming in that are freshmen. I think Amari Nablack is going to be a mismatch and someone that's going to be a ton of fun to watch. But they still have to come in there and learn. They still have to get acclimated to the college lifestyle, let alone the college game. And maybe they can hit the ground running. I certainly have no reason to believe they can't. If Nick Saban and the Crimson Tide staff are high on them, they're high on them for a reason. And so they have the ability to do so, but we all know what this game is. It's a very difficult thing to come in from high school to college and hit day one. Another reason why I think Cameron Latu is a name we have to watch is one of the things I always talk about. If you want instant offense, running back play and tight end play is an easy way to guarantee your quarterback mismatches that he can take advantage of, and by extension, that your offense can take advantage of. When we look at the Crimson Tide, I already gave this whole soliloquy about how Cameron Latu gives them so much in terms of offensive production returning, but what that means on the back end is that that's a position in tight end that Alabama is going to be utilizing as a mismatch. Look, tight ends now in this day and age, they have the classic tight end body in terms of height and size, but they're running routes like a wide receiver. They have wide receiver speed. They have wide receiver moves in most cases. and because of that, they're instant mismatches on the football field. If Alabama can continue utilizing Cameron Latu as a mismatch, it's only going to open up everything else. We talked earlier in this video about the existence of Jahmyr Gibbs and what he can do. Well, if you already have Cameron Latu that returns so much in terms of production and that prior relationship with Bryce Young, that's only going to open up opportunities for Jahmyr Gibbs and vice versa. Everything has a trickle effect. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. And because all this production is returned at the tight end position, I think Alabama can make a lot of interesting things happen, and I'm very excited to see it. Not to mention, there's a new tight ends coach, Joe Cox. What new wrinkles is he going to introduce for Cameron Latu? Even though Cameron Latu is a junior, we also need to remember he just transitioned to the tight end position. So even though this is a prospect that is already fairly advanced in terms of their understanding of how to be successful in college, their understanding of the system, he's still got a bit to learn in terms of what position he's playing. And so because of that, he will still be getting better this season, and I think that's something we have to watch. But at the end of the day, Cameron Latu gives Alabama quite a bit. He's an instant mismatch because of the position he plays. He offers them the ability for someone to be both a playmaker and a blocker, and with an offensive line that's going to be a bit of a work in progress, I don't think we can underestimate the importance of a tight end. Someone who can offer experience from last year, but someone who you know is also a mismatch and you can take advantage of the matchups. And though Alabama has to figure out how to replace their two leading wide receivers from last year in Mechie and Williams, having a tight end that returns that much in terms of production is certainly a great way to start, and I think that Bryce Young has to feel very confident with that. But I think Latu is someone that we need to watch this season because I think he's in store for a much bigger year, especially when you look at the totality of circumstances. But because of that, I can't wait to hear from you. Hop down to the comments, let me know what you're thinking about this. That's it. See you.